Allison and I had been together for 7 years, 5 of them married, and with successful careers and finances, we were moving towards starting a family. Our best friends, Bruce and Sheila, were in town for the evening, and we set out to explore a trendy new club. As we looked around the crowd, we couldn't help but feel a little out of place. Although we were no older than the average regular, it was obvious that this was a place for dating, and we were 4 couples. We didn't look too old-fashioned as the drinks were flowing, and we were dancing along with everyone else. As I recall, Bob started the conversation later in the evening and said something like, "Do you remember, Jeff, how you and I came to such places and chose any girl?" "Certainly. I wonder if I can still charm these beauties into having sex with me." And catching the look that the ladies gave me, he added, "Not that I've ever tried." Allison almost choked on her drink and then interjected, "In your dreams, dear, according to my recollections, you were never a Casanova, and if I had not made the first step, we would never have gotten together. Your wooing talents wouldn't work in a place like this." Bruce, "God, Jeff, these girls don't understand why fathers teach their sons to fish to develop life skills, but leave their daughters at home." This phrase elicited 3 "What?" I didn't even understand where he was going with this. Bruce didn't stop. For a guy, the first step in fishing is knowing where to go for the best catch. Something like this place. Then you need the best gear and bait for what you want to catch. You have to accept that you may have to cast the line a few times before you feel the bite, and it will take even more patience to hook and fish without breaking the line. And by the time you finally catch one, you'll know it's either a trophy catch or one you'll just toss back into the pond. And that doesn't even count those times when you leave empty-handed. For girls, everything is simpler. They fish with dynamite. They just come, light the fuse, throw it into the water, boom. A bunch of fish float up, and they simply point to the catch that they like. Allison was far from agreeing. "I can't believe I'm sitting at the table with 2 such chauvinists. 90% of the guys who come to these places are looking for only one thing: to get laid. Only a few women come with the same purpose, and by this time they have usually already taken the guy and gone somewhere. The last thing they want is to wear him out dancing or get him so drunk that he can't do his job. By this point, there are girls here who just came to have fun, or a large number of those who hope to meet the man of their dreams. For this group, the number of princes on white horses is limited, and real skill is required to catch them. This is as much a fishing game as it is for you guys trying to pick up the remaining girls here. Before I met you, I had good skills, and I could catch anyone here. Now you should understand something about Allison and me. We felt just as in love after 7 years of dating as we did at the beginning. One of the reasons was that we were both very competitive, both mentally and physically, and together we always tried to be better. Usually, whether it was running a personal best in a half marathon or a regular game of cribbage, we always had some sort of bet on the line depending on the outcome. And now Allison not only doubted my abilities as a fisherman, but also affected my masculine pride. Self-esteem and alcohol began to take over. "So, Allison dear, are you saying that with your feminine charms today, you could captivate any man in this club, and I, a poor loser, will go home, rejected by everyone, and will only relieve my disappointment myself? Jeff, honey, unless you drug someone or get her so drunk that she can't give informed consent, you don't stand a chance. And you can do all this, Allison, honey, without telling the guy, 'Take me home and have sex.' That's right, big boy. I'm willing to bet I could hook up with one of the hottest guys in this club, using just my feminine charms before you could hook up with anyone other than an obvious prostitute. Since you're so confident in yourself, let's make a bet. The loser of the month does whatever the winner wants, cooks, cleans, does the laundry, pays all the bills himself, whatever. Everything except what is dangerous or illegal. You and Bruce will choose 3 guys that you don't think I can pick up, and all you have to do is convince Sheila that the girl you choose is not an obvious prostitute. Whoever sends a photo or text with proof of sex first wins, and after 2 o'clock in the morning, the whole bet is canceled." It's worth noting that Bruce and Sheila were not only dumbfounded at first, they even tried to remind us of the risks we were taking. But as the argument escalated, they became embroiled in a battle of the sexes. Soon the three of us began scouting men for Allison's conquests, discussing their chances of success in order to provide her with maximum difficulty. Meanwhile, I was looking for my ideal target. My predatory instincts awoke, and I began to look out for a lonely girl with a neighbor appearance. Not the sexy neighbor that men dream of, but a rather simple girl who dressed up today in the hope of meeting someone, but saw that all the girls at her table had already attracted attention. By the time we had chosen 3 guys, I had found my perfect woman. Allison seemed delighted with our choice, which surprised me. The first guy is the most handsome in this club. I'll start with him. I just need to eliminate him from the game since he is sitting at a table with 3 other guys, and none of them are interested in the girls present. I'm sure you picked him thinking he was gay, but he's so handsome I just had to check it out. If he's straight, I'd love to be right here on this table. The second choice was a guy at a table with 2 couples who looked like us. You'd probably think I'd go to a macho guy who's clearly here to get laid because he can't stop himself from flirting with the young girls who approach him. He's probably captain of the school football team and sleeps with someone every night, but I'm sure having sex with an older, married woman is something he'll be bragging about for weeks. If things don't work out with the first guy, I'll move on to him. Although I admit he is too easy a choice. You all think that the second guy came as a couple, but I see the situation differently. The way they interact suggests that this is not a date. He is not very affectionate with both girls, as is usually the case if there is something between them. He keeps looking around, and when he dances with either of them, there is no passion between them. This guy is single and may have been brought here by friends to help him recover from a failed romance. If I'm right, he'll be easy to pick up, and he'll probably turn out to be a lot more caring and passionate than my last chance. It's not too late to give up, because you don't have a chance. If you surrender now, I will even reduce your servitude to 2 weeks to save your pride. No way, I thought, pushed back my chair, and went to ask the girl from the next yard to dance. Her name was Denise. She actually looked a little lost and lonely. Although she didn't expect or particularly look for a connection, she seemed to understand that sex was something she might have to offer to get someone interested. Her gratitude for any attention was touching, and although I did not forget about my goal, I enjoyed communicating with her, and the time passed faster than I expected. It took her a few more drinks to build up her courage before she dared to invite me to her home. Luckily, she lived only 5 minutes away, and it was her own apartment, so she didn't have to worry about a neighbor. As soon as the door closed, I gently hugged her and we kissed for the first time. Perhaps it was just that, perhaps I began to perceive her more as a person than as another victory, and perhaps, most likely, it was due to the fact that my blood alcohol level began to decline. But that kiss showed me how stupid and wrong I had behaved. Taking a step back, I saw how vulnerable she was, even though she was willing to have sex with me, even if just for one night. Denise, I'm sorry. This is wrong, and you don't deserve to be treated this way. I just had a fight with a girl, I lied, but there was some truth in it. But you're too good for me to take advantage of you just for the sake of revenge. Please forgive me, but I need to leave. Just by saying this, I suddenly realized the reality of our bet, and my face must have reflected the state of the abandoned guy. I quickly walked out the door and down the stairs into the small foyer of the building. Sitting in a corner on the cold, dirty floor, I began frantically typing a message to Allison. You were right. I couldn't. You win, and I will fulfill the terms of the bet. Just stop and go home. I love you. Anyway, that's what I was going to write, but mid-sentence I got a new email notification. Topic: Big winner. When I clicked on the link, I saw a photo and a note. The only identifying detail was on the wrist a diamond bracelet. The bracelet I gave Allison for our 5th wedding anniversary. It's good that I was already sitting on the floor. At some point, the world plunged into black. When I woke up, I heard my phone again notifying me about the letter. The topic is the same. New photo. I was shocked. I couldn't move. I could barely breathe. The only thing I could think of was that there was no way to know for sure that it was really Allison. She may have convinced one of the couples to have sex while she was filming. Perhaps she put the bracelet on the woman to deceive me. Oh my God, please, maybe. I sat there for 15 minutes until my whole world began to crumble. Then the last photo arrived. All doubts disappeared. She smiled at the camera. This was my Allison. It's good that I was already on the ground. The world has fallen into darkness. After some time, I came to my senses from the sound of the phone with a new notification of a letter. Topic: Big winner. When I was able to come to my senses, I still couldn't believe what was happening. I got up and staggered out into the street. Every few steps I had to stop to puke, take a few deep breaths, or just regain my balance. I didn't know how long I wandered, but at some point I ended up in the parking lot of one of those relatively safe, comfortable, but still inexpensive hotels. It seemed like a good place to stop. The guy at the counter agreed to check me in as Thomas Brady. When I showed my ID, I must have looked so bad that he was fine with it. 3 more $50 bills got me a 2-day stay. It seemed like it would take me at least that long to realize what had happened. The pain only intensified when I realized that Allison had not called me since she sent those photos. Either she was spending the night with her lover, or she did not care at all that I had not returned home. Not wanting to talk to her, I turned off the phone, and then, so that she could not track me, I removed the SIM card. The room was far from special, but the bed had clean sheets and the bathroom was clean. In my condition, nothing else mattered. The sun rose, but I still had no sleep, only a lot of tears. Walking down to the lobby, I discovered that the hotel had a small business center with computer access. Still wanting to remain undercover, I logged into my work account and then into my personal email. There were no new photos, and frankly, I didn't know if I could stand any more, but one message from Allison did arrive. I won fair and square, so it's time for you to go home and pay your dues. Staying out all night with some prostitute was not part of our deal, and you're only adding to your punishment. I would say that you need to be a man, but you obviously didn't succeed with that. Who is this woman? I thought that we were always competitors, but I also believed that we were still a team with common goals and complete respect for each other. How come I realized how stupid the bet was, and she didn't? I couldn't talk to her then, so I hung up and went back to my room, hoping to think things over. I thought about getting drunk, but I knew that was what led to my problems. It was better to think everything over carefully in a sober state. I ordered pizza for dinner, but as time passed and there were no obvious solutions, I returned to the computer room to check my messages. There were 2 new messages. The first is from Bruce. Dude, I hope you and Allison are okay. We lost track of you, but Allison let us know that she was leaving with that other guy to help him come to his senses. She said she was right. He was trying to recover from a failed romance. She said it was time for him to get back in the saddle and start riding again, but who knows who will ride who. Sheila and I are worried, so call when you can. The next message was from Allison. Hey, asshole. Now you've really pissed me off. Enjoy the sex until she throws you out, because you won't hear anything from me for the next month. I may have to meet Brent a few times to satisfy my hunger. I was starting to feel nauseous, and it clearly wasn't from the pizza. Where does all this anger come from? Not the slightest concern that I didn't come home. What if I got hurt at the hands of a jealous guy or something like that? And then this threat that their one-time fling could become something more. Another sad walk to my room. Another sleepless night. Another gray morning. There were no resolutions on the horizon, but I had urgent things to do that I could focus on to take my mind off my misery. The first step was to call my boss and tell him I wasn't coming. Harry and I went to college together, became friends, and he invited me to work. He also went through a difficult divorce and was understanding. Then I went back to the counter and gave him some money to extend my stay for a few more days. Then I went into the hallway to go online again. There was another message from Allison sent late in the evening. Brent called me today. I wanted to know if we could meet again. He'll call back in a couple of days, so you better get home, otherwise I'm so horny that I might agree. I wonder if it was my imagination or if he really was as good as I remember. By the way, I left the house a mess, so you'll have plenty to do when you finally get back. My first thought was, she really wasn't giving up this fight. My second thought, not only is there no sympathy or apology, but the outright anger is only growing. But what hit me the hardest was that she gave him her phone number. Before I realized where everything was going, I didn't understand what was going on, but I couldn't help but think that Brent had a few more meetings in mind for himself. At one point, I wondered if I should split the bank accounts and set up a meeting with a lawyer, but then I felt guilty that I could give up on our marriage so quickly. Instead, I replied, "I'm fine, but I need time to think about it. We'll have to talk soon." However, I didn't add any "I love you" words. Over that night, I began to doubt whether it was still true, and even how well I knew the woman I was married to. Not wanting to leave the office stranded, I called my secretary to sort out the current situation, and then the unexpected awaited me. "Damn it, boss, what kind of trouble are you in? I just spoke to your wife, and she is on the warpath, cursing you and even threatening to get me fired if I cover for you. We've never had problems with her before, but now she's just crazy." After I explained that Allison and I had argued, and that I was taking time to sort out my thoughts, I suggested that the secretary call Allison and tell her that we had been in contact, but that I did not say where I was. I just asked my boss for a few days off. I hoped that this would calm Allison down and save my assistant from the attacks. Knowing that Allison wouldn't allow herself to miss work because of our problems, I took a taxi home to pick up some things. Upon returning, I saw that every room looked like the house had been thrown by teenagers who had been left unattended for the weekend. It became completely clear what the payment for my lost bet would be. Something in me wanted to retain some independence, so I only took old clothes and a pair of old sneakers that Allison wouldn't notice. I left my car and computer so that there would be no trace that I was at home, and after catching several buses, returned to the hotel. The best part of the day was changing into my tracksuit and going for a 2-hour run. Shower, burger, and fries for dinner, and it's time for the big call. Looking back, I can't imagine how I would have survived all this without Bruce and Sheila. Bruce and I had been best friends since school, but I wasn't sure whether Sheila was on Allison's side or mine. I had to find out. "Hello, Bruce. It's me." "God, Jeff. Where are you? Are you okay?" "About as much as can be expected. I hid in a cheap hotel to think things over. Before we continue, I don't want you to get in trouble if Sheila is mad at me and takes Allison's side." "Don't worry, Jeff. Allison called last night while I was out and accused Sheila and me of hiding you. She got so angry that Sheila started crying when I came back. We both feel terrible that we didn't stop you too, but what Allison said was way over the line. If you and Allison decide to work things out, don't forget that this was an isolated mistake. You were both drunk and equally at fault. If there's anything we can do to help, just tell me, mate." "You are right. We were too drunk. As far as I know, this was an isolated incident, but will it be the last time? And should I tell her that I couldn't know, wouldn't finish it? What the hell? Jeff, I'm putting you on speakerphone. Sheila is sitting nearby and should hear it." So I told them everything that happened after I left Denise, about how I was too late with my text to stop the bet, about what was in the photographs, and I read out the messages that Allison had sent me, as well as the highlights of her screaming at my secretary. When I finally finished, there was a long pause and Bruce coughed quietly. "Sheila can't speak now, but she's nearby. What's next, Jeff, and how can we help?" I wish I knew, guys. With conversations and maybe the help of a family psychologist, we could put all this behind us. At least we could blame it on the alcohol and promise to never be that stupid again. I haven't yet told Allison that she's the only one who broke our marriage vows. On the one hand, if she finds out, she will probably feel guilty, and this will poison our relationship. On the other hand, she may take this as her victory, and I will turn out to be a weakling. I've been thinking about this a lot over the past couple of days, and I've begun to realize that a lot of our relationship was based on our competitiveness, two people trying to show who was better, even when we were acting as a team. We could respect each other's strengths, but only as long as we could analyze them to come out on top. As for the bet, Allison was the winner. Morally, although I am not innocent, I turned out to be better. Either way, we both lost, and she needs to understand that. So far, there is no sign that she plans to be magnanimous in her victory. We talked a little more before saying goodbye. No solutions were found, but I knew I had friends I could rely on. On Tuesday, I gathered my courage and called Allison. She was as cold as the Arctic wind in winter, but agreed to meet for dinner that evening. My only condition was a quiet restaurant, as it seemed like a more neutral place where we could talk. But my hopes were in vain. Allison showed as much compassion as a bouncer from a loan shark who came to collect a debt from an addicted gambler. In short, stop being a coward, it's time to pay up. And it was all my fault for agreeing to the bet, knowing that I would lose and should have understood the consequences. No compromises, no regrets. Even looking back, I don't think I acted like a coward then. My intentions were to gain time, the time I needed to process my own emotions. But I hoped even more that during this time Allison would realize what a disaster it had turned out for both of us. All I had was the hope that when she returned home and fulfilled the terms of the bet, she would understand that the competition was over and we would at least try to restore our marriage. And so, the next day, I began my 28 days of purgatory. The first 3 days, all my free moments were devoted to cleaning. Every dish in the house was used and left all over the house. 3 washes, and Allison demanded that almost everything be ironed, even though we had never ironed clothes before. Each dish was something complex, specially chosen from ingredients that we did not have, so I had to run around shopping. Her car needed to be washed, waxed, and vacuumed. Clothes she hadn't worn in years, which, of course, I had to pay to dry clean. What are the signs that it might thaw? None. Tired by the night, I was banished to the sofa while she slept peacefully in our marital bed. And then Saturday came. Looking back, I can't remember 3 days, let alone a week, when Allison and I didn't have sex. All Saturday evening, while I was working, she walked around in a super revealing peignoir, showing off all her charms. If I was already horny enough, she added fuel to the fire by lying down on the sofa and turning on one of our films. I tried not to pay attention to what was happening, but she knew that I was already losing this battle. You can stop minding your own business for now and come here. Take care of me. The bet was that everything should be without physical harm. Until you pass the disease test, I won't do anything. I admit, I felt a little satisfied when she angrily walked away, loudly slamming the bedroom door. She couldn't schedule a test until Monday, and preliminary results would take a few more days. I thought I had won a small victory, but her revenge was not long in coming. Sunday morning. If you don't want to satisfy me in the next few days, I need something to replace you. That evening, she spent the time walking around completely naked. By 8 o'clock, she told me to prepare her a hot bubble bath, and after that, she relaxed for a few minutes. I think I'm ready, Jeff. You can leave. Me and Brent, her new toy, want to be alone and get to know each other better. Leave the door open in case I want to tell you something. By the time we tested negative for infections, yes, I got tested too, so Allison would feel like we were equal. Allison had a new way of mocking me. There was no doubt that I had an obligation to apologize, but the question was how to do it. I decided that the right thing to do was to give the jewelry as a gift, and I started looking at small jewelry stores to find something special. Choosing a gift itself was a risky move, so I decided to buy a $500 gift certificate and accompany it with a heartfelt note. To make sure she would receive it and accept it, I left it with the concierge at her home. Denise, you didn't deserve the way I treated you. Nothing can undo the damage I have caused, but I hope you will accept this gift and choose something you love. It's money already spent, so if you don't want something to remind you of me, just give it to a friend. Maybe you should have a talisman that will protect you from predators like me. You are too good a girl for this world. Jeff. P.S. If you ever want to talk, here's my number. I'll understand if you don't call. The first difficult task was over, and I could move on to my other plans. As the month wore on, Allison was enjoying her role as the victor, and if anything, seemed disappointed that my submission would soon end. There was no sign of regret about how much our marriage had suffered. She tasked me with creating a grand finale for the last night of our agreement. Ironically, it was one of those nights on the town that led to that disaster. A luxurious dinner, dancing, and, if everything goes according to her plan, my triumphant return to my marital bed with the chance to start the new month with reconciliation. I planned everything down to the last detail to give her maximum pleasure before midnight. I bought her an expensive new black dress, new linen, shoes with 4-inch heels. I signed her up at the salon, where they gave her the full package. It all didn't come cheap, but she looked like $1,000,000, simply dazzling. I booked a limousine for the evening, starting with dinner at the most luxurious restaurant in town with champagne and ending with flambéed dessert. Then we went dancing in a club with a more elegant atmosphere than the one where our disaster began. By 11:30, we were back home, and she was ready to go. Her dress fell off as soon as we crossed the threshold, and she walked like a model from the Victoria's Secret show, heading to the bedroom. I looked at the clock, knowing that I was forbidden sex for the rest of the month, but preparing her for the huge finale. Allison must have been keeping an eye on the time too, because as soon as the clock on the nightstand showed midnight, she ordered, "Have sex with me. Show what you can do." And I did it. Figuratively, not literally. I was already fully dressed, and all I had to do was go to the closet where there was a bag with my things. Pointing to the envelope on the table in the hall, I said, "I left you my new address, but I moved all my things this afternoon while you were at the spa." Joint accounts were closed, credit cards were paid off and canceled. I divided my savings 50/50ths. The envelope contains documents for separation. You can sign them and send them to my lawyer on Tuesday. Otherwise, I will be forced to hire a courier. We can still fix everything. I made an appointment with a family psychologist and left you all the information. If you don't want to put in the effort, just let me know so I can cancel the appointment. In the meantime, don't call me. I need some space. I was somewhat surprised that Allison didn't try to contact me. My lawyer told me that she signed the papers as required. I knew she was in contact with Bruce and Sheila because Sheila had become a close friend of hers, but I didn't try to find out more. I didn't want to drag them into our conflict. Bruce and I talked almost every night, but we avoided discussing my marriage problems. It was as if Allison and I had never known each other, if not for the confirmation from the psychologist that she had signed up for an individual interview, and I needed to sign up too. In 2 weeks, we had our first joint meeting, at which we had to find out whether we could restore the marriage or decide to separate. Working with a psychologist, both individually and jointly, was more interesting than I expected, although perhaps less helpful for couples like us. I won't be able to convey all the details here, and of course I could only guess at what was discussed in the individual meetings with Allison. Much time was spent analyzing our rivalry and how it shaped and eventually came to dominate our relationship. How, even in team matters, we tried to be in charge and supported each other more in order to spur each other on and keep up than for real mutual assistance. It was as if it was destined that one of us would one day cheat, and most likely it would be Allison, who fought for dominance in a world where men still ruled. In my individual sessions, this aspect was discussed in detail, since the male ego suffers much more when it comes to accepting the fact of his wife's betrayal, and I had to understand whether I could forgive and move on. A significant part of my sessions was devoted to the resentment that I continued to carry within myself due to Allison's subsequent actions, which for me turned out to be much more difficult to forgive than the fact of the betrayal. The psychologist also explored my vulnerabilities that had emerged throughout this humiliating month, and a lot of time was spent discussing Allison's choices. How she mocked me, made me feel inferior, mentioned Brent and his size, and then also imitated him with a toy. Our sessions helped Allison and I begin to communicate, but they often ended with our conversations turning into verbal duels in which two strong characters tried to get their way. The psychologist often intervened to diffuse the situation and end conflicts. Gradually, I began to think less and less about Allison and began to get used to my new status as a single person. I can't say that it made me happy, but it was definitely less traumatic than my painful experiences during the month of my service. Allison probably even did me a favor because she deliberately pushed me away. Bruce and Sheila were a great support to me, but I was even more surprised that help came from an unexpected source. One evening, as I sat alone watching an unremarkable baseball game, Denise called me. She apologized for not thanking me sooner for the gift certificate she used to purchase the pendant necklace. She explained that she planned to wear this jewelry on dates or evenings with friends, and if someone started flirting with her, she would hold the pendant to concentrate and not make a mistake in choosing a man. I laughed and explained to her that my gift was essentially a reminder to stay away from men like me. We had such a pleasant conversation that we agreed to meet for lunch, which became the beginning of several such meetings. No, we didn't do anything sexual. She was 10 years younger than me, quite sweet, inexperienced, and innocent, but we became very close, like brother and sister. So much so that she even asked me to be her chaperone on the first couple of dates she found online. Meanwhile, my attempts to date women were going nowhere due to my apathy and lack of effort on my part. Sheila tried to set me up with a couple of her friends, and Denise even set me up with a divorced woman she worked with, but in all of these cases, it was either too early or there was simply no chemistry. I focused on work, which led to a raise and a solid bonus, and on running now I ran 10 kilometers on weekdays and longer distances on Saturdays. I reserved Sundays for rest, although sometimes it was just a long bike ride. I wasn't a hermit, but for someone living in a big city, it was probably the equivalent of a recluse. And here I am. Saturday morning, 7 kilometers out of 15 were planned. It's a beautiful, cool fall day, and I'm feeling pretty good considering the circumstances. It's strange that on such a day, there is almost no one around. Up ahead, through the trees, I see only one runner. This is most likely a girl. The outfit is bright green and blue, and this part of the trail is for more serious runners. No guy who's into running would wear an outfit like that. Perhaps I'll speed up a little and see who it is. Yes, it's a girl. I admit she has excellent technique, and her figure too. Long legs, a beautiful butt, and this suit. Oh God, it looks like it was painted on her. These new suits, made from modern materials without seams, hug every line of the body, and even from this distance you can see that she is not wearing underwear. Maybe so it doesn't rub. I'll get closer to make sure. Crap, she's laughing. Do you like what you see? You could join me. I promise I won't bite you, Jeff. What? Damn it. It's Allison? How? Why? My brain froze and I began to stumble. He fell face first into a pile of leaves. I can't remember the last time this happened. A complete shame, even if it hadn't happened in front of my arch rival. I get up slowly. Just a couple of scratches. Nothing is broken. Nothing is stretched. The only thing that suffered was my pride. And badly. She stopped a little ahead on the path. At first her face showed concern, but as soon as she realized that she would not have to drag me along with her, the laughter began again. Quiet at first, but then she couldn't help herself, and soon I couldn't help but join in her laughter. She turned and started running again, shouting over her shoulder, "You better hurry up and join me. We can't trust you to run around alone without getting hurt." I admit I didn't mind staying a little behind and watching her movements. She gained a little weight, but everything went in the right places. Instead of those angular shapes that low body fat athletes have, she now had some pretty nice curves, and like I said, watching her butt move was mesmerizing. It's still not very polite to stare for so long, so I sped up and caught up with her. We ran side by side in silence. Without our old rivalry, our new rhythm seemed surprisingly calming. There was so much comfort in this that I decided to ask. "How did you find me? Not many people know about this trail." Bruce told me. "Wait, before you start complaining about how he betrayed you and how you can't trust anyone these days, let me explain. I pestered him for weeks, but he didn't say a word until he felt you were ready to talk. This week he called me and said you might be ready. I decided that this place was the closest to neutral territory that I could find, and here I am. If you don't want to talk, we can just run a little together. If you want me to leave, I will leave. The truth is, I enjoyed her company and wasn't as angry as I might have thought. Running in silence together was surprisingly relaxing, but all good things come to an end. Why didn't you tell me? Maybe not right away, but at least during consultations with a psychologist. I'm no genius, but I didn't have to be one to understand where she was going with this. So Bruce couldn't keep it a secret. Bruce? No way in the world would he have spilled the beans. No, this is Sheila. One evening we had a little too much wine, and she just couldn't hold it in any more. Damn, I thought. Alcohol will always haunt me. She explained what happened with Denise and why you didn't tell me about it from the beginning. I just don't understand why I hide it later. Even though I felt a little cornered, she still made an effort to talk, so it was a good time to explain. My psychologist and I discussed this for a long time, but we never came to a final decision on what would be best. In the end, I decided that our sessions were aimed at trying to help us understand how one of us was always supposed to be the winner and the other the loser. Me admitting that I didn't sleep with another woman would seem like an attempt to take the moral high ground and make you look guilty. The reality is that we both lost. You may have gone much further, but I still failed you and our marriage. You are a strong woman. I couldn't forbid you anything if you made a decision. But it was also my responsibility to intervene when you didn't see the risks. I myself pushed us and our marriage towards this disaster. It doesn't matter whether I slept with Denise or not. What matters is that I even allowed myself to engage in such a dangerous argument, and for that I have to pay the same price as you. There was a long pause. I heard you met Denise a couple of times. Is it true that you set her up with your cousin? Yes, we met several times, if you can call it that. She is a very sweet girl, but too young and inexperienced for me. I think she started to see me as an older brother. Jimmy is her age, a great guy. You met him at our wedding. They are such a cute couple. I think things can work out for them. I like to think that I ended up there that night for a reason, maybe not her prince on a white horse, but something good came out of it. She returned the pendant to me when things got serious between them. Said she found someone better to protect her from dirty old men like me. She said that if I ever pull my head out of my ass, I should give this pendant to my woman, since I don't have a very good reputation in these matters. I thought she loved me until she inserted this comment. What about Brent? Are you still dating him? You knew that during that month, when you were fulfilling your duties, Brent called me and asked to meet. Then I still thought that everything would return to normal after a month, so I told him to call later, just in case. He called, and we went on a date a couple of times. I immediately told him that it was just dates, that we had a hot night, but it would never have happened without alcohol and our bet. It turns out he's actually a very nice guy. Teacher, loves his job. He has a dream to find a good woman, create a cozy home, have 2.5 children and a golden retriever. Growing old together, maybe going bald, maybe gaining weight. You know this picture. But you also know that this is not about me, and I would die from such a life. Not from children and dogs, I think that would be great. But the stereotypical suburban life would have suffocated me, so it's over with Brent. And in case you were wondering, no, I don't have fantasies about other men anymore. I still go to our psychologist, but you know that yourself. More than you. I think I have a lot of problems to deal with. I still don't understand how I could do what I did. Don't interrupt. But somehow it turned out that we both lost what was between us. Competition has captured us and changed us. I've come much further than you have, and I can't and don't want to be like that again. I'll understand if you say no, but if you think it would help, I wouldn't mind another session together. We didn't notice how we reached the parking lot. Time flew by. Suddenly, the words ran out, and I didn't know what else to say. When I looked at Allison, I couldn't tell if it was tears or sweat on her face. I quickly wiped my face, but I knew that she saw my tears too. Allison got into the car and started the engine. As I was about to leave, she rolled down the window. I didn't know if our conversation was over or if it was goodbye. Jeff, I liked it today, I hope you don't mind me intruding into your life. We needed this conversation. I don't know how far this took us, but we achieved more than in all the sessions with the psychologist. Maybe we can do this again next Saturday. I'll be back if you want to join me. No tense conversations. Just a run and conversation. No winners, no losers. But if everything works out, we can both get a little lucky, if you know what I mean. She smiled softly, blew me a kiss, and left. And I remained standing in place with a stupid smile on my face. I was already thinking about next week. Maybe it will be a run of only 5 kilometers. You will need to save your energy. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think. Click to the next one. Click to the next one. Click to the